Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a preview for the masses. 3 magnificent teams. One team set the world on fire. The other team set themselves on fire. And the third one could bounce their way all the way back up the ladder. How high? We don't know. But we're going to have a chat about it tonight on Lace Out's 3-team preview for the Hawthorn Hawks, the Melbourne Demons, and the North Melbourne Kangaroos. And as per usual, I have my superstar co-host for my preview most, rampaging Tommy Roker, joining us so far. Mate, I'm looking forward to this because we're talking about my team, but 2 other teams that are really setting themselves up quite differently for their assault on 2025. How you going?
Yeah, going very well, Peps. We've put 3 of these shows away, so now we're heading into the downhill skiing from here. I feel like these 3 teams are very interesting to talk about, but we could see all 3 of them miss out on finals, or we could see 2 or even 3 of them. Get. I think we'll see some competitive footy and some interesting stuff because we've got some good coaches, right? We've got 2 premiership coaches, and the other one played in 4 premierships and was captain. So we've got some good stuff to deal with tonight. Looking forward to it.
I reckon it's going to be an absolute corker. We really can't go past this team, otherwise known to everybody as the Hawthorn Hawks. But, Tommy, Hawthorn, in my eyes in 2025, the hunters are going to become the hunted. You have to remember, this team started 0-5 in 2024. And has there been a more hyped up team only 20 weeks later? Hawkball took the AFL by storm, and the Hawks said, take your best shot at us, because we ain't scared of nobody. They played a high-tempo, precision, high-risk, high-reward style of footy that caught the rest of the world and the rest of the league sleeping. That's why they were 12th for clangers, 15th for contested marks, 1%ers, and 17th for turnovers in 2025. And I can tell you, it won't be the same. Clubs will be prepared. Clubs won't be caught out by the damaging small forwards, the rock-hard defence, and one of the most dynamic midfields running around. They work hard across the ground for each other, and clubs have turned up the speed and endurance game to combat the Hawks and add a page from their playbook into their own. This, I would have to say, is going to be the most fascinating team who made finals last year and could dominate the competition, or get found out and fall back into the top cluster of clubs. How do you see things for the Hawks in 2025?
Yeah, well, Peps, I think you got some really good points there. I mean, ordinarily you'd say when a team climbs up into the 8 and then wins their way by the end of the finals, the way that it shakes out, because they progressed in the finals. They actually did what the Bombers haven't been able to do since that John Howard was Prime Minister, and that is win a final. And they hadn't won a final for quite a long time, remember, because when they did make it back to finals in 2018, they went out in straight sets then. But we won't talk about that because that's got bad memories for you too, that year. But anyway, they're into the finals, come 6th. That ordinarily would mean a very difficult draw. But I don't know if it's turned out to be as difficult as it should be. Yep. I think they might have gotten a bit lucky. What do you think with their fixture?
I think with their fixture, I think there's games that people were caught out by them last year. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think teams are going to be planning for Hawthorn a lot better. They decided to do to football what Brendan McCullum did to cricket over there in England. He just said, you know what? We're going to play all-out attack, but we're going to have a very strong defence. They were very, very awesome. You've also got to remember, this is a team that when we looked at them last year, they dominated so many of the defensive statistics as well too. They They were ranked 5th for opponent kicks per game, 1st for opponent handballs per game, 3rd for opponent disposals per game, ranked 1st for opponent points per game. So they just didn't put it on from their end in their scoring zone. They also put it onto the other teams as well. And that's where I can see them potentially taking another step by having another year of getting used to the style of play. You bring in a Barras and you bring in a Battle. It adds that extra level of class. It reminds me very much of, funny enough, the Hawthorn model during their triple premiership years. Get the nucleus and then bring in the players of need. Obviously, Mitchell played under that. He knows what he needs to do, and he's done that over the last couple of pre-seasons, and I really think it's going to pay off for them. So if I was a Hawk supporter, I'd be genuinely excited. You did say, though, like, what does their draw look like for this year? Well, Port Adelaide, Carlton, Adelaide, Collingwood, Melbourne, and Brisbane are all their ski double-ups for 2025. And so when I look at those, I could see them splitting Port Adelaide. Depends on what Port Adelaide turns up. Carlton, I could see them actually beating Carlton twice. I'm still not overly convinced on Carlton. Everything really has to go right for them to dominate in 2025. Adelaide, maybe 50-50 on that. Once again, we just don't know what Adelaide's going to be like. Collingwood, they should win both of those. Like I said, I've got a feeling, and once again, these games are in the back half. They're interesting. All their double-ups are all in their last 6 games. No other team's got that. So this is a fascinating way that they do it. So they get to see everybody before they have their double-ups, which is really interesting. They have Melbourne twice. Depends what Melbourne turns up, but that could be a splitter or they could win both. And Brisbane. So I'm looking at every game they play at the MCG, they should win. And then there's obviously a couple of opportunities to win double. So they're in a really good spot, but they're also playing potentially 4 to 5 other teams that could make the 8. So it's not going to be as easy as some other clubs have got it.
But Peps,
yep,
they have a really good recent record against the Hawks.
Yep.
Even against the Lions, the Hawks have. So even though the Hawks have been down bottom 5 and the Lions been top 4, Hawks been, they spring surprises. So, that's what I mean, that their matchups are against Victorian teams like Collingwood and Carlton. They still have their pretty good advantage of playing in Tasmania, which will eventually run out, but that might be a bit of a boon anyway.
Yep, exactly right.
Just keeping it for a little bit longer because it is such a dominant record, even when they've been garbage. So I question that. My question before this week, so if we had done this show on 3 or 4 days ago, my question would have been, why, if their backline was already that good, why did they get these 2 guys in Josh Battle and Tom Barras that they paid so much for? Great question. I guess what happened in their trial match, Blank went down with an ACL. So even though they didn't rely on him last year, he was the guy that they were sort of saying, he'll be back, he'll be our backup or whatever, and he'll let guys like Sicily go forward.
Yep.
No, Blank. And CJ got an injury. I don't know if it's going to keep him out for anywhere near as long, but he's important for their backline. But again, they didn't rely on him so much. So the question's still there. And I'll put another question to you, Peps. Are Battle and Barras A-graders, or is it this thing of who is available and we will take the available players?
Yep.
And a team like Hawthorn are very, it's a rich club. It's a nice place to live. They've got these new facilities building out at Dingleberry or wherever it is.
Dingley.
And they've promised the world. Whereas, Battle's coming from Shakilda, and he hasn't had a lot of success there. And Barras has had his success at the West Coast. And even if he just goes for a superannuation payout, it's good. But are they both A-graders?
I would say, look, what's an A-grader these days? Like, what do you classify as an A-grader? It was on SEN in Melbourne recently. Today, if you're watching this, yesterday, if you're watching it tomorrow, So go to sen.com.au. I'm not plugging them, but have a look. And Gary Lyon went through his A graders. And his version of an A grader is what they did in 2024. So, he, as an example, Clayton Oliver is not an A grader in his eyes. So you've got to have a look at who have they got, who are their A graders. And I would definitely say that John Newcomb definitely is I'd have to say is an A grader. I would say Will Day isn't there just yet, but he is banging down the door. He just needs to get that consistency under himself. I would say, I'd say Dylan Moore definitely. If you're an All-Australian, you're in there. James Sicily as well too. So there's three.
Well, Sicily's an A grader as a defender.
Yep.
But we think that he's probably now he's gone over the river Styx into his 30s.
Yep.
We're thinking that he'll probably go to the forward line, where he was not clutch, if you recall. He had the chance to really...
2 weeks in a row he had that, didn't he? Was it 2 weeks in a row? Or no, that was Logan McDonald. But, you know.
No, but Sicily had some fluffs.
Yep.
I mean, you know, the best of best players have done it. I think Isaac, what was his name? Went from Hawthorn to Geelong. He was famous for missing a goal against Geelong for Hawthorn. So the joke was
Isaac Smith. Yeah,
Isaac Smith, Norm Smith.
But you know, sorry.
You know, the best of them miss shots at goals in important games.
Yep.
I think he added a bit of dynamism. They no doubt need something extra in the forward line besides their little Mozzie fleet.
Yep. And I think the thing that I like about him, we know them Mozzie, we know Ginnivan, I think Watson, he will be, I don't want to use the word star, but he has got everything to just light up the MCG and kick a bag. I think he's one of the most non-Indigenous, awesome small forwards I have seen for a long, long time. I'd almost go with Stevie Milne. He reminds me, he's got a bit of Stevie Milne about him. You know, he's got a bit of spunk, he's got a bit of chewed, but the boy can he play. And he can play, this guy. And I love every moment about him. Here's the thing. Here's a couple. Sorry.
Imagine he might kick a bag of 6 or 8.
Yep. There's no reason why. And that's the thing. Do you go to Moore? Do you go to Ginnivan? Do you go to, Mitch Lewis? It's interestingly, they got rid of Kosicki a couple of years ago. And now they're looking at Mitch Lewis going, well, is he do we need him? Well, you wouldn't turn him down. But he just can't get his body right at the moment.
No, but Two Phones is a good player.
Yeah.
Two Phones Chol. Didn't get much of a chance at Richmond. Ironically, they really could use someone like him right now, but he's moved on, and he made a good fist of it on the Gold Coast. It's just that when you're the Gold Coast and you've got these future A graders, coming in, you can't keep him. And people say Dibber didn't want him, but I don't buy that. And the Hawks paid handsomely in the trade. And that's what the Suns needed was points in the trade. So Chol, I would say 40 goal year. That'd be he's a B grader, but he's still only 27. He's got 5 or 6 years to show that he could really get up there and kick his 50 or 60 goals a year.
Yep.
Although they only need that 40, like I said.
Well, he had 37 last year. So this is the thing about Hawthorn. One of the things, if they really want to take that next step, is you have to have that consistency on field. And when I say consistency, it's not just consistency in the way that you play, the consistency with the manpower on the actual field as well too. They had 9 players play every game last year. Okay. One of those names is James Warple, which a while ago he would have just said, no, get rid of him, useless. No, he was going backwards. He almost revitalised himself last year. They also had Weddle. Don't get me started on Josh Weddle. He is amazing. We've spoken about Newcomb before, but it's names like Carl Amon, Blake Hardwick, Connor McDonald, Connor Nash, these players that you wouldn't say that they are, A or A minus, B players, but they're just doing their role. And it seems to be that's what Mitchell's really much about, which sort of leads back to what you said about Battle and Barrass. They don't need to be superstars. They just need to do what we got you in for. Can I go through a couple of names? Josh Gibson, David Hale, Brian Lake. You see where I'm coming from here? Yep. Burgoyne. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Come in, do your role, one step in front of the other, 1% every day, and the results will speak for themselves. And this is what's happening. The results will speak for themselves. I'm like I said in my little opener, clubs will be more aware of what Hawthorn can do. They're not going to be, they're not going to get sprung by Kel Shadir this year. He's not, we know what the kid can do. So they're going to be ready for Kel Shadir. All right?
Yeah, he's injured.
Exactly.
So that might be
when he comes back. When he comes back.
All right. He was exceptionally good for a first year player.
Exactly. Like he sort of, I won't say he come from nowhere, but he I think they were a little bit surprised on what he did. And I think the public were really surprised at, this guy he's good. Like he's good. And so I think there's a lot of benefits for that. Their midfield is it's humming. Their forward line, like I said, can be scary. They've just got scoring options because you look at it last year, their goal kickers, we spoke about a number of clubs how maybe 2 or 3 players dominate, then it spreads out. Chol with 37. Dylan Moore with 36. Now, what a magnificent return from a small forward. Gunston with 29, so he's still delivering. Ginnivan had 28. Connor McDonald had 28. Nick Watson had 25. Kel Shadir had 25. Luke Bruce had 21. So you've got 9 players who have kicked over the 20-goal mark. That is a cracking return for any team. And when you have another year under the coach, getting used to the game plan, tweaking it, refining it, those 20 and 21s now become 25s, 26s, 27s. Those 28s and 29s become 32s and 33s. Those 37s become 40s. And it just grows and grows. And it's infectious. Winning is infectious. It's the best disease to have. And they got a lot of it last year. And I just hope they get a lot more of it because they are really just exciting to watch. And it's hard to have a bad word about them. I think a lot of it is in their own wheelhouse, what they will actually do.
Well, look, I think you've got some really good points there about the goal kickers. And as we said, nobody really at the top end of the Coleman, but plenty of them in that area, especially the small forwards. They only have 2 legacy players left, Peps, which the Hawks did not try to trade out all of their flag players right away. A lot of them did leave to go to other clubs, notably players who went to Brisbane.
Yep.
But even Sam Mitchell himself left for his last couple of seasons. So it did sort of happen, but they didn't get this flood of draft picks for those guys. They just left. They just got old. Jordan Lewis went to the Demons, and they did what they did. The 2 legacy players they've got left are Luke Bruce and Jack Gunston. Even Jack went off to the Lions for a year, didn't go so well, begged to come back and perform for them and just sort of help them. But my question to you is, and let's throw Sam Frost in there. Now, these are 3 guys who have seen a lot of footy at the Hawks.
Yep.
And it's great to have them in and around the club. But if they make the finals this year, do you see that any of the 3 of them is necessary for their success?
So who's that? Gunston, Frost, and who was the third one?
Bruce.
Geez, you put me on the spot there.
Well, let's go through it.
Okay, so I reckon Bruce would be the one that they could probably move on.
Yep, and when Gunston is fighting for a place with Chol and Mitch Lewis,
that's going to hit.
And they're mucking around with Sicily going forward.
That's going to hit. So I think those 2. I think Frost will be the one, funny enough, that would survive. And if you asked me that 3 years ago, I would have said he would have been the last one. And I think if there is a susceptible place, it might be just down back. But everything about Hockball, what they do, is exactly what the way that they play. And I think that's the way that Frost plays as well. So I think he sits in quite nicely, and I think Sam Mitchell likes him a little bit too, which is kind of cool. So that's what we like to see.
Yep.
So
I don't see big changes in this team. I mean, you don't really want to do huge changes to something that's already working. Their list ins. It's what everyone's talking about. It's Battle and it's Barras. And after that, they did have one guy in the second round named Noah Mraz.
Yep.
Might join the queue. Otherwise, a couple of Category B rookies and a fourth round. Like not a lot. But then again, not a lot went out the door. And certainly none went out the door when it came to contributors from last year's run.
Exactly.
After round 5.
Yep.
Chad Wingard retiring. I mean, good on you, Chad. Cooper Stevens and Denver Granger
Barras, yes.
Neither of them ever really reached any great heights. I mean, Cooper Stevens has now been moved on from 2 clubs. So, they've churned the bottom of the list, and they've added in a couple of guys who I think are B graders. But I guess if you're Tom Barras and you're coming off having won a flag and you've played next to one of the best fullbacks in the modern game, in Jeremy McGovern, then you've got a pretty good kit bag of tricks.
You have.
And you're ready to. And then you've had a couple of down years at the Eagles. You're ready to start winning again.
I reckon they're mint. I think they're ripe for the taking of. I was saying, where do I put them? They are easily a top 4 team. But we've only got 4 spots. So I reckon they could be top 4, but I can't see them missing. But as we've said, stranger things have happened. Things that have happened over the years. You just need a couple of injuries, and I think that there might be some challenges. But I think that they're going to be locked in for a massive season. And this rebuild, if you're an Essendon, St Kilda supporter, you would be just going, how did our club get this so wrong when these guys are able to do it in less than 3 years?
I challenge you a little bit on the 3-year thing. I just think you're talking about the Mitchell era.
I'm just talking about these. He's been able to turn this team around. Like they were getting smacked a couple of years ago. So, yeah.
But Clarko dragged it out for so long, and then it was like, okay, time for transition.
Yep. Smart.
That arrangement lasted 1 week.
Yep.
And Clarko's off on holidays on his $1 million or whatever, and Sam Mitchell just got him started taking care of it all. Stripped the list way back, was giving away players. Tom Mitchell got paid by Hawthorn to play in Collingwood's grand final win.
Fantastic. Love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. So, okay, smoke if you got him, big dog. I'm going they're playing finals. You're saying that they're playing finals.
I'm saying that their ceiling is very, very high.
Yep.
Top 4. But their base, they haven't long escaped out of the bottom 4. So sometimes we see, I think I said I wouldn't go back to it, but recall that Melbourne first emerged and made it into finals, and the next year they came second last, and then back into finals and stayed in finals until last year. So success isn't always linear.
No,
the Hawks have managed to make it kind of linear. And they kind of kept a hard edge, even when they were shit.
Yeah, I think their double ups. I reckon their double up games are going to be what makes them either a top 4 team or bottom of the top 8. Simple as that. I think that's going to be, and it's going to be funny. You look at those teams. I reckon 4 out of those 6 teams they play twice are teams that could finish top 4 or could finish outside, depending on who they win. So it's fascinating. So I reckon they're in a massive spot. They're in a massive win spot. So Hawthorn supporters, you are in a good spot. And you know what's also in a good spot? Lace Out, the magnificent Lace Out YouTube channel, Lace Out podcast going live every single week. But I have a massive favour to ask, because 86% of people who watched our last video aren't members of the channel. And so what we would like you to do, what I would like you to do, Tommy would like to do, the J-Dog, I want to ask you a favour and to hit that subscribe button to join our channel and be part of the Lace Out family, because the more people that we have as part of our channel, the bigger it gets, the bigger gets that we can have, and you don't want to be missing out on awesome content dropping in on your YouTube channel every single week. It's it's even better than this, and it's hard to believe. So be part of the channel, and we love to have you because it's Slice Out, and it's how you want your footy. Rightio, I was going to say J-Dog. Tommy, going to talk about someone who's very, very close to my heart. I know you've been excited for this one because we're about to have a look at the Melbourne Football Club. My team, the D's, who did win a flag in 2021. It's almost been 4 years since that occurred. Here's the thing, Tommy. The Demons, when I look at them, they have to make one promise this year to themselves and to their members. And it is simply this. Melbourne, you need to remember the Titans. You got to remember, we're not just a team, we're a family. Because 2024, it was a year to forget. Off-field issues disgraced the club, which then affected on-field performance as the year went on. From being 6-2 after round 8, they went 5-10 for the remainder of the season. Injuries, drug sagas, forced departures, and bad preparation were only several factors that caused the Demons to be 15th for handballs, score involvements, 16th for clearances, centre clearances, and stoppage clearances, which is unfathomable when you see how brutal they are on the inside. They were pathetic around the ball, pathetic moving the ball with speed, and don't get me started on the decision-making and the disposal into their forward 50. Now, they have made some significant moves off-field with the departure of the president and CEO. The Glenn Bartlett legal mess has been resolved, and now the on-field belief and love needs to be reignited as it played such a crucial part during the 2021 Premiership. You got to remember, boys, you are a family. It's time you started playing one.
Mate, I think that partly the turning point was back in 2023.
Yep.
When Maynard laid out Brayshaw. Now, Brayshaw wasn't the make or break player, but gee, the body language that was going on, a lot of players knew it was, gee, our teammate's gone forever now. Like, he was always one big concussion away from probably giving it away. And you don't get anything back when a player like that retires.
No. He was heart and soul. He was heart and soul of that group.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, hell yeah. I would have loved to have seen him and his brother play together, but that'll never happen. But they had troubles along the way, as you said, but when they bowed out of finals in 2023, it was like, okay, there'd been time for the previous 3 seasons where we had seen a Melbourne Demons side that could not be beaten by anybody. And then within a week, someone would tear them apart and you'd be like, okay, well, it didn't happen in 2021. It happened in the second half of 2022. And it started to happen a bit in the second half of 2023. And then last year, we're thinking, okay, they're back. But they weren't because all of that other stuff was all going on. I mean, they've survived things like, Melksham and Maisie having a punch on. They've survived little things like that have gone on. But when it became that perfect storm, your locker room isn't the same. I question Goody. There have been questions around Goody, and I think that was part of the previous CEO's issues and whatever.
Yes.
My question to you is, if things go south, is Goody going to be the coach in 2026?
Okay. This wasn't one that I had planned to discuss. I've said it for the last couple of years. He has been a little bit of like, he needs to go to aisle 56 and Bunnings and swing the axe because he played too many people who didn't deserve games, and he should have played people who deserved games. Didn't do it. Also, I think once Adam Uze left, which was last year, I don't think that Melbourne had, well, you could even say before that, didn't have a plan B. It was almost like contest and defense. That's what they played on, contest and defense. But when teams started to get a run on, they started playing a little bit differently at the start of 2024. They had that big loss against Freo, or West Coast. One, okay, it was basically within 2 weeks. I think it might have been Freo first. And then they went back into their shell and went back to the defensive game. And players are like, this is boring. We hate this. They had a big camp over the new year and literally said, the players said to Goody, we do not want to play this way anymore. It is boring. We don't like it. And it worked a number of years ago. It's not working now. Look at the clubs who've won the flags. They've all been high-speed teams. Collingwood were pretty quick to a degree, but Geelong and especially Brisbane moved the ball by foot a hell of a lot faster. And you have a look at Hawk ball. Clubs are going through the middle of the ground, and we're still doing this around the boundary line. It has to change. So they've changed it. They've had culture and leadership from the All Blacks come in and work with the group. They think that's been a massive change. I've went and watched them train a couple of times, and you can see that there's vibrancy. Clayton Oliver looks fit. Now, perfect. This is one thing that people forgot about Oliver last year. He didn't do a preseason. Petty didn't do a preseason. And these guys had to virtually play every single game last year. Clary was still racking up mid-20s in possessions. He had 35 in his first game. And as the year went on, he also had a bung hand. I'm not making excuses for him, but what I'm trying to highlight is that he's had a full pre-season. Petrarca, full pre-season. Melksham, full. There's been hardly any players that have missed a session this year, and it's been through maybe a family commitment or an illness. But outside of that, they are looking fit. They're moving the ball faster. They're using their hands a lot more, but it's pre-season. We need to see what happens during game day. What I'm also really excited, though, for is that there were players that played last year that I reckon a year ago before that wouldn't have even been mentioned. So Melbourne had 6 players that played every game last year. Cade Chandler, he wouldn't have played every game. He played in the VFL Grand Final in 2022. Got his part, bang. Judd McVie, amazing. Now, he's going to be out for a number of weeks, so he'll miss the first probably 4-5 weeks of the season with a bad hamstring, which is going to be almost beneficial when he comes back. So it is a loss, but it's one that I'd rather have at the start of the season rather than the back end of the year. Okay. Stephen May looks fitter. So overall, the team looks fitter. They've had their little injury niggles, but I love the pickups that they've picked up. They've gone to the draft. They know what's coming up with Tasmania in a couple of years' time. And they've targeted kids. That's what they've done. They've got Windsor. Tholstrup, I reckon both those guys will be good players. And they've decided with Windsor they're moving him to a halfback to get that run. So they're making changes. Ed Langdon, he's dominated on a wing. Where would you play Ed Langdon in 2025? On the wing. Club's gone, we're going to put him onto the ball and get that run through the middle. Trent Rivers, on the ball through the middle of the ground. All right. They picked up Harry Sharp from Brisbane, who was an emergency for their grand final to potentially play on a wing. All right. Even the guy that they picked up in the SSP draft today, they were looking at him in the middle of the year last year, looking at him, and it was either him or Aiden Johnson, who I'll get to in a moment. He's going to probably take the AMB role because the AMB role, Alex Neil-Bullen going to Adelaide, is a big loss. That is a big loss. I don't think you realise the defensive and leadership stocks he had for Melbourne on field.
No, I do think that he had more than just what he showed as a player. He was a leader for under-18 South Australia when he was coming through the ranks against Christian Petrarca and my man Tuke Miller. Yep. And they're all mates because they had a rivalry in those years. And so he's gone home. Well, when you lose a player like that, you've got to go back to the draft and you've got to replace them. So you're right, Harry Sharp could be a like for like, but you said you were going to talk about Aiden Johnson and Jack Henderson. I'll leave you to do that. But Harvey Langford, he's your midfielder of the future. Once because you've got a great midfield as it is when it's healthy. And he'll get in and he'll get a little bit of time in there. And he could probably play a bit of wing. Yeah, definitely. I'd imagine he'd be a bench player. And if he gets up for the start of the season, then, it's going to be a better team for him to be in it. And Xavier Lindsay is one who we'll see what happens with him. But those are the guys that the Demons really, they really went, okay, well, this is a great draft. No matter what happens, we've got to get up.
Yep.
We've got to get 2 picks inside that. Well, they were originally top 10, weren't they? But yeah, and I don't think that they suffered from having to wait until pick 6. Anyone in that top 6 could have picked Harvey Langford, so that's well done. And yeah, by the time you get to pick 11, you kind of there's a few names that have gone off the board that you like, but I think most people would be very happy with Xavier Lindsay, and certainly a lot of the experts.
Yes.
I'm not an expert. I'm just pretty keen on it, but a lot of the experts were saying, "Wow, Xavier Lindsay getting to that point, smart, high IQ footy player, and coming into a team like the Demons, who have probably 7 A graders."
I'd say that they've got A graders, but they're all not playing A grade football, and there can be various reasons for that. There can be various reasons for it.
Yeah, but I mean, Bailey Fritsch needs a bit of help in the forward line, and I would say that's what somehow the Demons need to manufacture it. I've been pulling my hair out for a very long time. Still got a fair bit left. Stephen May is a full forward.
Yep.
The only reason he was in the backline and developed into this A grade backline player is because the Suns had Charlie Dixon, Tom Lynch, Sam Day, and they had a bunch of rucks, and they just went, "Oh, Sammy, we're just going to put you down back and see what happens." The next thing you know, he captains the club and then moves to the D's, and there's a big reason why the D's went from contender that fell by the wayside to runaway carry.
It was him and Lever were the big difference that we needed. We just needed someone to control that back end of the ground, and they did. My concern is that forward line, but I think a lot of the time, and I've said this a lot, if you move the ball in slow to your forward line, it just allows the defenders to set up easier, but it also means that the forwards can't really go where they expect the ball to be. And I have seen in training and also online through their videos that they are working faster. I think Turner will be awesome down there. Jack Henderson, I think you mentioned a moment ago, could really be that nice little fella from the footage that I saw on AFL.com.au and some other stuff. He could be that nice little pinch hitter forward that we need one like that. Like, we just need something little crafty, good skills, etc. Van Rooyen, another year into him, like he's going to be awesome. You got to also look at, from Melbourne's perspective, they only had 3 players last year that kicked over 20 goals. Now, you're not going to make finals, and you're not going to make, and that literally was Fritsch, Pickett, Van Rooyen.
Yep.
So I think that if they can get those 17s to 20s and 15s to 20s, or the ones that they've got sitting on just under 20 to 25, like, just get those extra few, those small losses turn into small wins, and they can build from there. Matt Jefferson's been sitting in the wings for goodness knows how long. We don't know why he hasn't played. They need to get him on board. Like, they need to get him to play. You've also got, Oliver Seston running around there. You've also got, Jed Adams running around there. You got Blake Howes down there. Moniz Wakefield running around. So they've got lots. They've got depth, but they need to expose that a little bit more. And I would have hoped they would have done it over the last couple of years when players who shouldn't have played. From my humble opinion, I do think that they're capable of making finals. If everything goes right, you got to remember, when Petrarca went down and Oliver was injured and Gawn had to pretty much carry the load by himself, it makes it difficult for anybody. They got Tom Campbell in, all right? They made changes. They had to make changes off-field. And I've said it for years, you get your off-field right, your on-field will take care of itself. For the last 2 to 3 years, the off-field has been shithouse. What's the results been? Shithouse. I think it's going to change, and it just seems to be a lot more spunk and a lot more unity around the club. And I'm very buoyant based on the teams who they do play twice this year, because they've actually got not a bad run of teams that they follow up twice against this year. Give me a moment, I'll tell you who they are. Gold Coast, so they could split that. North Melbourne, which I would have thought would have been an easy game, but that's not going to be as easy, but you could probably expect them to maybe win both those. West Coast, they should win both of those. Should.
Yes.
They just got outplayed last year. The Western Bulldogs, well, at the start of the year, I would have said no chance, but the Western Bulldogs have been falling over faster than anybody of recent time. Hawthorn and Collingwood. So they've got it's not the worst draw, but there's going to be some challenges in there. But I would say they could definitely win out of those 6 double ups. I reckon they could definitely win 8 of those. 8, is that right? Yep, 8,
yeah,
6,
yeah.
6, 7, 6 to 8 of those double ups. So if you win that, you only need to get another 7 games from the rest, and you've made finals.
They're definitely a 14-win team.
Yep.
With that capability, and even more if they really can rediscover the magic, or partly rediscover the magic, solve the problem of scoring lots of goals.
Yep.
Keep the defence sort of, or even maybe going back to the 2021 kind of model. There's a whole lot of question marks there. I've got a middle 6 just because it's a big jump from where they're going to get in, but they could be top 6.
Yep.
Easily.
Yeah.
Personally, I think if with this list, if they can't make the finals or at least give it a red hot go, question marks have got to be there. I think the Adamuze thing was a bit of a shame because it was actually Richmond who screwed up their own succession planning when they let go Adam Kingsley.
Yes.
And then they had their perfect replacement in Minnie McQualter, and then said, lately in other clubs, the sort of recent history has been your dead cat bounce from an assistant coach taking over as a caretaker hasn't really worked. But bullshit, like give him a 2-year contract to see what happens, and if he doesn't do anything with the kids in 2 years. So they've come and poached Uze, who's just been, essentially waiting around, and he kind of knew that Melbourne were never going to get rid of Goody in that scenario. So how long more can you wait around? Champion teams often lose champion assistants, and that's sort of what's happened here with the D's. But I mean, they get replaced, don't they? I mean, I'm sure you'd know a lot more about who they've brought in. And I really like
Nathan Jones has come in. Nathan Bassett from Port. So Chaplin's gone down to the forward line. They've made changes. They had to make changes, and that's what I'm really buoyant of. So I think that they're in a really good spot. They also finished on 11 wins last year. To make finals was 13, and they had a couple of small losses. So for everything that went bad, and they still finished on 11 wins, that's why I think there's so much positive with them as well too. So I reckon they're in for a bit of a climb this year. But hey, let's come back in 25 weeks later, and you could go, Peps, you're an idiot. And I go, I should have got that. I should have seen it coming. So for all the Melbourne supporters, remember, do me a favour, subscribe to the channel, because 86% of people who have basically been on our channel over the last video and so forth haven't been subscribers. And so, it means a lot to us if you could join the channel. It makes us bigger. Means that we can have bigger guests, and we can make our more content for exactly what you like as well too. So I'm excited by Melbourne. I'm excited for you guys watching. Rightio. Now, I'm really excited by this team. It's North Melbourne. The North Melbourne Kangaroos, led by Alistair Clarkson. I am genuinely excited for what this team is going to be bringing in 2025. Now, in my eyes, the North Melbourne Football Club have to do one thing. This is the promise that they need to say to their supporters, their club, and everyone. They need to channel their inner S Club 7 and don't stop moving. Because you got to remember, they were putrid, awful, embarrassing. That was some of the words that described the crowds that actually turned up to watch the Roos in 2024. Would you go and cheer on a team that ranked 16th for points per game, 17th for meters gained, marks inside 50, and 18th for inside 50s, opponent points per game, score involvements, inside 50 tackles? It was a horror show. But North Melbourne supporters, I can see the light. They have the nucleus of a destructive midfield, a forward line that won't be easy to contain as they have over previous years, and a coach who is starting to see the time and effort that he and his coaching team have put into this young crop is producing an edible harvest. They have a lot of work still in front of them, and they have to taken a path that has caused them and supporters a lot of pain, but has set them up for a very exciting long-term gain. Your thoughts, Thom Roker?
Well, where do we start? I guess one way you can get excited about this if you're a North Melbourne supporter is looking at the ins.
Yes.
And we've got guys like Caleb Daniel, Premiership in 2016, All Australian. Jack Darling, Premiership in 2018, All Australian. Luke Parker, Premiership in Sydney back in 2012, multiple All Australian and still playing very good football. So you've got these three guys who've come in just to replace your guys like Greenwood and Shields and even Steve-O leaving, retiring, and Tarrant Thomas. The less said about him, the better. Yep. But it cost them a top 10 draft pick that didn't work out for them. So you've got that coming in as experience. And then you're looking at, they traded for former first-round pick Jacob Costanti. He'll add a bit to the mix in the forward line. They got this number 2 draft pick, Finn O'Sullivan. So he'll just go straight into their midfield. Luke Parker, they're talking about giving him midfield time, but, show the other blokes what they're supposed to do and rest up forward and strengthen up the forward line because they need goals, and he's always been a goal-scoring forward. They got a young River Stevens in as father-son, so that's a nice sort of end to that whole saga. I won't say what the wags on social media was saying about whose dad he was. Anyway, and they paid a heap for Matt Whitlock. So let's just have a quick look at that one. They tried all the draft. They tried saying, we'll trade our future first. Let us come in. Finally, Richmond picked up the phone and said, well, what are you going to trade? And they said, we'll trade our future first, but we're not trading it for picks 27. Give us your future second. So the higher North can get, the worse Richmond's pick's going to be.
Yep.
And Richmond's going to come last, so I think. And so North's going to get the first pick in the second round. Yep. So it might not actually be such a massive cost, although they did actually have a second-round pick that they also sent in there. So it's going to be a big cost, but big reward, Peps.
Hey, we spoke about Hawthorn. High risk, high reward. They had 8 players that played every game last year. Once again, getting a little consistency on the park. Unfortunately, it was Nick Larkey, Paul Curtis, Cam Zurhaar, the only people to score over 20 goals this year. But you've got to think that Larkey had so much on his shoulders. I had him for the Coleman last year. That's how confident. I'd probably even be more confident. Even though Darling is not going to be, and Parker are not going to dominate as they would have 5 or so years ago, you've got to put a decent player on both of them. So instead of 2 players having to go to Larkey, they're going to have to send one of them to Darling. And that just might free him up. That'll free Zurhaar up. They'll also free their little fellas up around the ball. What they've done in their drafting stocks over the last number of years, when you pick up Sheasel, Wardlaw, Dersma, and McKercher, those 4, and then you have Finn O'Sullivan this year as well too, and Matt Whitlock. Like they are setting something up for just awesomeness. Their backline is going to be a massive concern. From some of those stats that I mentioned earlier, like once it got past the double circles in the middle of the ground, it was the Roadrunner had blown off and Wile E. Coyote had just set himself on fire. So they've still got some work to do down there. But if you get another preseason into these kids, they're able to go faster for longer. You've got Davies Uniacke running around in the middle. You've got Simpkin running around in the middle. So now you're not having to rely on these guys who are your top enders saying, it's all on our shoulders. Now you've got 5, 6, 7 that can run through the midfield, means that you can maybe slot a Simkin up forward for a bit. You could push Davies Uniacke up for a bit. You know, if you want to, maybe a McKercher just goes into a halfback if you need for a little bit. Wardlaw, we're not going to maybe play you every single week because we know we've got hamstring issues. We're able to rest you where they weren't able to do that. So they've just got more tools at their disposal. They've got Tristan Xerri. I love him as a ruckman. He's a ruckman. North have had a very, very good run of ruckman. They've had Goldstein. They've had Xerri. They had Braden Pruce for a while. That he was an absolute beast as well. So they've just got and Gold Coast. So they've got some niceness about them. Unfortunately, you look at Ben Mackay who left. He's gone to Essendon, and funny enough, you start to think who's got the better list and who's going to go forward faster, North or Essendon. And I reckon by halfway through the year, I know the money talks, but they might actually get a little bit more success than Essendon this year. Maybe.
Well, yeah, and sometimes that's what it takes, isn't it? So it's very hard to get out of that bottom three, and those three teams in it have been stuck there.
Yeah, they just need that. They just need a couple of big powerhouses down in their back line. That's what what they did with Darling. They need a Darling type down in the back line. I don't know who you can get. Barras would have been fantastic. Like, he would have been a perfect opportunity to slot in, but I don't know what you can do there. Yeah,
he's just going for a last minute flag if he can.
Yep, smart man.
And Hawthorn's more likely to do it than North. But I'll tell you who a lot of the North fans are very bullish about in the back line, and that's Charlie Comben.
Oh, yes. Yes.
No, he hasn't played a lot of games, but he was a tall forward option for them, but they went, all right, we'll stick him back. And next thing you know, their spine isn't looking terrible because they've got a great ruckman. They've got basically now they've got their bookends. Comben, if he can stay healthy, has replaced essentially replaced McKay, but stepped up in that regard. And look, I think if you're looking at one end of the height scale, they've got a number of ruckmen that they can rotate through there. Sherry is on the verge of being an A grader. Yep. So I think they'll cobble together a back line that'll sort of emerge after a bit. They've got Griffin Logue back, so you put Griffin Logue in the
it makes a difference, doesn't it? Yeah.
Luke McDonald is probably not the A grader he was, but
he doesn't have to be. And this is the thing about North. They don't have to have... Mate, we don't need you to be the superstar that you have to have the entire back line on your back anymore. We've got some coverage for you now. So, allow you to absorb everything that these guys have to offer because they've got so much. Once again, as soon as it gets into that midfield... And the thing is, if you've got your forward line, your midfielders who can run up and down all day, and your midfield, your back line have got more options to kick to. So that means that they're fitter, their disposal isn't going to be as bad. The thing is fitness. Once your fitness starts to wear out, you get tired, that's when the skills drop. Yeah, and totally. That's where I think North are going to make a jump because they've had these kids for a couple of years now and they're going to get pre-seasons into them.
Well, this is why Clarko wanted to get the older bodies in, and he did it when he first arrived at the club, and now they've had it, and now he's doing it again with these three guys who, if they're playing finals, I don't know that those three guys are the reason. I don't think that North are going to play finals this year.
No,
I just think
no chance. No chance.
3 games, winning an extra 10 games is not going to happen. However, any improvement is improvement, and showing these guys that they can maybe take a big scalp. I mean, you remember when the D's were crap and they'd get up and they'd win a big blockbuster, and you'd feel so great for a couple of days and just go, why can't they play like that every week? The reason why they weren't developed enough in their system, but they got it together that one time against whoever it was.
Yeah, they did it, and I'm going back to Melbourne here. That they beat Essendon. They beat Essendon on a Sunday evening, I think it was, or a late Sunday game, or it might have been a late Saturday game. Christian Salem basically slotted it almost on the final siren. And that was Mark Neild's first win as coach. Now, we're not going to the Neild era, but that was Salem and then the others started to kick in. But it was a game against Richmond. It was the Anzac Eve game. Jesse Hogan, I think, kicked 3 on Alex Rance that night, and that was like, okay, we've got something now. And they did play finals that year, played 2 great finals and fell apart against West Coast. Okay, fair enough. But they're going to have a game, I think, this year. It almost happened last year with Collingwood, and it almost happened with Sydney as well. There could have been 2 games where they shocked who they were playing, and then have a look at this. How good's this? So I think they just need to keep that in mind, that win will come, and I guarantee it'll be against Melbourne, but they will have that win, and you just need a spark.
Yeah.
You just need a spark.
Absolutely.
And if you get that spark, you can't start a fire without a spark. Bon Jovi, Social Disease.
Hang on, was it? Or was it Bruce Springsteen?
No, I said, you can't start a fire without a spark. There's something that I can't... You can't hide in a precious star when love is a social disease. Love is a social disease. You can skip through that or rewind it if you want.
I'll get it first, Peps, before Bon Jovi. Don't worry, I had their kiss singles, and I used to tape it off.
Best Father's Day presents ever. Oh, I just think that Clarkson is the right man for them. He's built up Hawthorn from scratch. He's doing exactly the same thing with this mob as well too. And I reckon they're going to be an absolute excitement. Watch this space for the next couple of years. But this year, I think they're going to be the riser. Out of all the teams, I think that they're going to be the riser. Now, 3 games last year they won. Could they potentially double it? Yeah, easily. They could get to 6. They could get to 7 games. There's definitely potential there. So, yeah, I'm really, really excited for North. I just think that there's so much going in, and depending on what happens is going to be the difference if Davies Uniacke stays or goes.
They could win 11 games and still finish 15th.
Yep.
This is how close the competition is. You know, if they're contending at any point in the second half of the season, that's, you know, when I say contending, like they might have to win every single game for 10 weeks, but that's still contending in my books. And as a fan, if your season's over by round 8, it's just demoralising. So get some wins on the board, especially because they've got such an easy draw. I think they've got Richmond twice.
I'll tell you who they've got twice. They've actually got a really, really good one. They've got Carlton twice, so you don't know what's going to happen there. They've got the Bulldogs twice. They've got Melbourne twice, Sydney twice, Richmond and Adelaide.
Richmond, Adelaide, that's
and
right.
I would say if you put Sydney, Richmond and Adelaide, and probably Melbourne, on Marvel Stadium or Ninja Stadium, watch out. They can win them. So I think they're in a really good spot. They're not going to make finals. They're not going to make finals. I'd be aiming for, if they got any higher than 12th.
Well, I'll tell you why they won't get higher than 12.
11 wins was 11 wins was 14th last year. So yeah, probably. If they get higher than 15th?
Peps, they sold 2 home games to WA. They're playing the Weagles as a home game at Optus Stadium, which is good for the Weagles' bottom line because, you know, they might win a...
Because they're really struggling for $1, aren't they?
And then they play Freo down at Bunbury, which is great. It's an extra AFL venue that it gets added to it. You know, the Kangaroos might end up becoming the 3rd Western Australian team.
Stranger things have happened, my friend.
They relocate them, and Brumby could be a good place to base a team. Nice place for a growing family. Yep. Who knows? I'm not trying to hang shit on them.
No, definitely. No. So what do you reckon? Where do you see them? Where do you see them finishing up, mate?
It has to be bottom 6. They will not. I'm from a club that sold games to bloody Optus Stadium when it first opened, and got out. We played. The club stayed over there. Played Freo and West Coast. The Doomsday Double in basketball, which I'm pretty sure is what North is going to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is going up there and playing 2 games consecutively. Could be good for the team. But I don't think they're going to win either of them.
I don't think
those
they
are
are
home games.
No. I don't think they are. I think they're going to find those ones a little bit tough. But just show me something. Show me something. All comes down to the percentage as well, too. That's the other thing. You know?
It does.
All comes down to the... Yep. That's what I think Paul Roos has said for many, many years. I think even Mick Malthouse has said for many, many years. Don't look at the wins and losses. Look at the percentage. And that gives you a true indication of where their teams are. And last year, at round 24, theirs was 66.5.
And we're seeing clubs that need to get up into the 90s before they can make that leap out of the bottom 4.
Yep.
And it doesn't happen overnight. The percentage goes up before the win column.
Yep, exactly right.
And there's always teams up the top who are going to start going down. I mean, we don't think Sydney's going to go down.
I do.
We think perhaps Collingwood, well, not by that far, but anyway, we'll get to them.
I can see the Swans missing.
Has the potential to go through the floor, but they also could go through the ceiling. It's a funny old game.
It's a great game, isn't it? That's why we love it. That's why we love the footy, mate. That's why we love it.
One player to look for this year, and I think he's really about ready, is Tom Powell.
Yep.
I really like the way Clark is back. Got all these fancy midfielders I picked up in the draft. He was still pretty high as a draft pick.
He went
You're the bull that I want.
Second or third, he went in the draft. So he went really high. Do you remember they there were so many options. Why'd you go for Tom Powell?
No, you're thinking of Will Phillips.
That's the one. Tom Sorry, I take that back. How's Will Phillips going?
And Powell, the thing that made it worthwhile. Will Phillips is on his last chance. If he doesn't perform this year, then he'll be on the trade table.
Yeah, fair enough.
In fact, maybe even he's not quite ready. Oh no, yes, I think he is ready for free agency. So there you go. But look, we know they've got good mids. We know that they've got some good talent that's coming to the forward line. We know they've got to build their defence. We know they've got a master coach. How do you improve from 3 wins and 66%?
Naturally. It'll be natural. It'll be natural. It'll be natural. Having those players come in is going to help them out so much. I don't think people realise how much it's going to make a difference. And I've said that's why I said I think they'll jump probably more than most people expect. I just want to see if that percentage, if they had the same amount of wins, if they had 2 more wins, but their percentage went from 68 to 95, a lot more people are going to be a lot more excited. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and the people from this side of the Westgate Bridge, that is our 3-team preview for Hawthorn, Melbourne, and North Melbourne. We're 12 teams down, 6 to go. Peps and Thom Roker will be back. Look out for our next edition. It will be out very, very soon, probably towards the end of the week. Give us a like, give us a comment. Like I said, we'd love for you. Do me a favour, give us a sub. Because if you give us a sub, we get bigger and we give you better content. And that's exactly what you want when you come to the #1 AFL channel this side of the Westgate Bridge. But to the great man, rampaging Thom Roker, thank you very much for your magnificent insight as per normal. And I have to ask you, just before we wrap up this bad boy, how do you want your 2025 edition of AFL football?
Mate, I want it coming straight to me from just outside 50. Lace out.
So do I, big fella. Have a great week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.